Coming up on this edition of Backroads of Montana, we visit the Hot Club of Troy, a coffee house and music venue that keeps the town happy.
I think if every community had a place like this, the world would be a much better place.
We're in Butte to take in the sights and sounds of Easter services at the Holy Trinity Serbian Orthodox Church. 30 miles southeast of Ekalaka, we take a real back road in search of the least visited national natural landmark in the U.S. And the journey ends in Alberton, where encroaching development has fired up a man with a unique approach to change.
He's such a part of the town long before he was mayor. I thought he was the mayor.
Settle back. This edition of Backroads will give you a lift.
Backroads of Montana was made possible by the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans. By Travel Montana at visitmt.com, and by the University of Montana.
Well, it's beautiful with spacious skies, has amber waves of green, and has purple mountains majestic that rise up out of the plains. And all across America, from sea to shining sea, where the mountains and the prairies meet, is a place I need to be. Home is where Montana is my home. From mountain peaks to prairie lands, places I have known. And I'm bound to ramble, yes, I'm bound to roam. And when I'm in off the road now, boys, Montana is my home.
Hello, I'm William Marcus. Welcome to another program in the Backroads series. We travel Montana to meet interesting people and visit some of the unique places that make Montana special. Today, we're touring the American Computer Museum in Bozeman, a showcase of the history of the information age. You might think that's been a short history, but really it goes back thousands of years to humans' first attempts to keep track of bushels of wheat and numbers of cattle. From before the abacus to beyond the ENIAC, we'll show you some of the artifacts of this unique and impressive collection. One factor that has always driven technological change is the economy, but there's a human side to economic change as well. Many Montana towns have dealt with changing fortunes in the past decades. We visited a small town in extreme northwestern Montana that responded to economic loss by rallying to save a gathering place for the community. It only takes a crack in the door to draw people into this place. The Montana duo, One Less Karen, knew immediately this place was different.
Words can't describe this venue. There are so few places to play where people come specifically to hear music. It's such a treat.
In the audience, Linda Lee drove over from Idaho, drawn in by a different reason.
Absolutely wonderful sense of community here because a lot of the people here are artists, and this is a place for them to express themselves.
This special spot in the town of Troy is the Hot Club. Sitting quietly in the back in his traditional cabana shirt is owner Frank Cheverini. He had no idea this place would teach him an unforgettable lesson about this community. A lifelong musician, Frank came from California and hit the Montana music scene in the 70s with the group Livewire Choir. He developed the reputation of being able to play anything with strings, and teamed with music greats such as bluegrass legend Vassar Clements. While the band played big events like the Kegger in Missoula, it was a trip to Troy that convinced Frank it was the place to settle down and raise a family. Set below the Cabinet Mountains, Troy attracted a politically diverse group of people. They came to work the mines and the timber. And they came for the scenery and recreation. When they all went to the grocery store, they got a reminder of the area's attractions. Frank opened Northwest Music and began selling instruments and offering music lessons. But sales dropped dramatically when timber mills shut down and mines closed. In 1997, Frank tried something different and opened a coffee house and nightclub with no smoking or alcohol so all ages could attend.
Karina, when you're done, this order's ready to go.
He got help from Lori Natale, the fast-moving kitchen manager, and volunteers like Denise Killingsworth. Meanwhile, Frank used his music connections to book live acts.
You know, you can't beat it. You've got an audience that really appreciates hearing something different, something out of the mainstream.
Well, I'm going down to the Delta. Mama, I can have my fun.
One by one, visiting acts signed the wall backstage, and the list was impressive. But financially, the Hot Club wasn't making it. The local economy was hurting too much for Frank to keep live acts on the stage. He believed Troy couldn't support it. So in 2003, Frank decided to shut down the club.
I called the employees together, told them unfortunately we have 30 days to go.
He said, I hate to do this, but I'm going to close the doors. And we were all shocked.
We have 30 days, let's do something.
I'm just saying, I've been struggling with this in my head for months and months and months.
And so we said, well, what if we can, change things?
And that was probably on a Monday, and on Saturday we had 50 people from the community in here.
And that meeting was a pretty emotional experience.
And the best, the minute it got out, we had people wanting to get involved, and that's how the membership started.
The membership referred to the Friends of the Hot Club. For a small monthly fee, members got special privileges like reserved seating and first crack at tickets for special events. Before they knew it, 100 people joined. Old friends like Vassar Clements returned to play benefit concerts. The membership kept the club going, but with Frank back in the recording studio, he was left with a nagging question. Why do so many people care about this place?
When there are so many other businesses in town that are hurting, and that are folding all the time, new businesses come up, they'll last a couple of years and they'll fold, no one's helping them. What I didn't understand was how much this place meant to the community and the people that frequent, all the regulars. I had no idea.
He learned it started in the morning with a good cup of coffee and conversation. It continued with local artists and musicians having a place to sell their work. And it culminated every Friday night. Employees working, volunteers contributing.
We joke about working for beans at the Hot Club. Coffee beans, we do that quite often. Frank owes me a bag right now.
And the final part that brought everyone together, the music.
Working on a railroad for $1 a day. Working on a railroad for $1 a day.
This Friday featured the talents of local musician Alan Lane, accompanied by a man who knows the crowd truly appreciates the performance and the venue.
It's a place where people can gather and have music as a common denominator without getting into debates about their personal feelings about politics, religion, or anything else. Everyone leaves that at the door.
The one coffee house that I've ever been to where the audience and the artists are just tight.
Working on a railroad for $1 a day.
It was a very humbling thing when it first came together. And I just realized the place had a life of its own. It really didn't have anything to do with me. They told me I'm just the mascot here.
If you're in the Troy area, stop in for some live music. The performances start at 7:30 sharp every Friday night. If you can't make it, don't worry. Performances recorded at the Hot Club are now available on compact disc. Of course, digital recording can also refer to things made with your fingers or digits. The American Computer Museum has some very early examples. You'll find an original 4,300-year-old Sumerian clay tablet with symbols representing objects and quantities. It's an early form of the spreadsheet, a very durable way to keep record of commerce and community. An elegant centuries-old tradition of religious pictures or icons from the Serbian Orthodox faith is at the center of our next story. We spent Easter Sunday at the Holy Trinity Serbian Orthodox Church in Butte. The church's paintings may be relatively fresh, but its liturgy and tradition go back 20 centuries. Attend a service at an Orthodox church, and immediately your senses are awakened. You'll hear unfamiliar yet moving a cappella harmonies. You'll smell air heavy with the scent of burning beeswax and incense. Everywhere, priests and worshipers are in motion. No one is sitting still. And at Holy Trinity Serbian Orthodox Church in Butte, above it all are the brilliantly colored frescoes and icons, surrounding you on 5 sides, suspending you somewhere between earth and heaven. Father Bratislav Kursic says this sense of holiness beckons you to worship.
When a person walks into church, the whole person is immersed into the ethos of the church. One sees the frescoes, one smells the incense, one bows down in prayer and prays, so the whole person is brought into the awareness that actually God is with us.
In 2001, Father Kursic arranged for a new iconostasis, a carved wooden screen which separates the altar from the main sanctuary. When he saw the impact the new structure had on the spiritual lives of his congregation, work began to transform the church's solid blue walls into something more uplifting. Iconographers follow strict guidelines when painting the frescoes. They literally copy the images from centuries-old drawings, leaving little room for artistic expression. This exacting process guarantees that whether you worship in Butte, Montana, or Belgrade, Serbia, each saint will be instantly recognizable.
When one walks in this church, immediately one notices that I am not alone. God is with me, and God loves me, and I think that's most important, the most essential message that one can get here, that is that God loves us and we are not alone.
In 1904, 40 Butte families built Holy Trinity, the only Orthodox church in this part of the West. It was raised when underground mining weakened the foundation. Today, a newer home with its inspiring new frescoes has only strengthened the faith of the Lazic, the Ivankovic, the Milanovic, the Salata, the Kapravica, and dozens of other families, drawn to the Orthodox faith by the beauty of its traditions, its teachings, and this church. After 11 years at Holy Trinity, Father Kursic, his wife Lisa, and their children Luca and Anastasia left Butte for a parish in San Diego. Father Kursic admits it was hard to leave Holy Trinity, where he had an opportunity to minister, and with the help of his congregation, also grew spiritually. The nonprofit American Computer Museum is the work of devoted collectors George and Barbara Karamedjev. The museum has everything from a replica of the first computer, built more than 2,000 years ago, to an original one used on an Apollo mission. George Karamedjev says he's always been fascinated by machines.
Anything mechanical, electrical, electronic, anything that involves intricate interrelationships in the physical world has always fascinated me from the time I was a very young boy. The collection, I think, is a reflection of the passion that I have for science and technology as a whole. And we felt it to be very important to share the history of technology, especially with young people who, for the most part, are not educated on where their modern world came from. They're surrounded with iPods and digital cameras and text messages and cell phones, but they're not taught how this all came about. So the museum's main mandate is to educate the young generation as to its own history.
The American Computer Museum in Bozeman, with its many landmark machines from the history of digital processing, is attracting more visitors every year. Our next Backroad stop takes us to what may be the least visited national natural landmark in America. On this story, we took the term backroads to a new extreme as we traveled in search of a geological curiosity. The Long Pine Hills of extreme southeastern Montana are the first clue this landmark is near. South Dakota, off in the distance, is the next clue. Pieces of white clay and sandstone offer hints of what's to come. Beyond any state or county roads, it takes some faith in a two-track similar to what homesteaders would have seen more than a century ago. Early settlers heading west came upon this rock formation rising out of the prairie.
During the big rush of homesteaders in the early 1900s, it was very recognizable, and people would say, well, you go to Capitol Rock, turn north, turn south, you know, east-west section of land, and the numbered sections were easy to find after you found Capitol Rock. And I'm sure they used it as a landmark.
It's located 30 miles southeast of Ekalaka, near the Montana-South Dakota border. It was dubbed Capitol Rock because its outline once looked like the nation's capital. It was such a prominent stop for homesteaders that the town of Capitol sprang up nearby. Most of the town disappeared more quickly than the rock formation. The columns stand taller than the pine trees in the area. On the backside of the formation, the trees maintain their shape, while the columns slowly erode. The dome on top now resembles more of a jagged rock, also a victim of the very erosion that gave it its initial prominence. The harsh prairie storms slowly chipped away at the white clay and sandstone that were first laid down during the beginning of the Tertiary period, 60 million years ago. No matter what shape it takes, the top rock is still visible for more than 50 miles away on the prairie.
It was a lot more distinct back in the 40s and the 50s, and in the last 50 years, the actual silhouette has kind of eroded. It's still recognizable, but not as prominent as it used to be.
In 1976, the National Park Service recognized this geologic formation as a National Natural Landmark. A professor from the South Dakota School of Mines nominated the location, citing its outstanding and scenic remnants of deposits that once covered the Great Plains. Today, it's clear that more birds than people land at Capitol Rock. Visitors are more likely to find a red-tailed hawk than another tourist. But it still stands as a reminder of a previous era in our history.
I think the uniqueness of the formation, the fact that it's set clear out here in Montana in a very undeveloped, unsettled, or unpopulated area, and it was done by nature, not by man.
There are 9 other national natural landmarks in Montana. Some are on private land and require permission to visit. But Capitol Rock is on federal land and is open to all visitors, if you can find it. You could use a computer-based mapping program, of course, but you'll need a newer computer than this Apple II to get and print that map. The director of the American Computer Museum has decided that anything younger than 10 years is not really historical in computer terms. Our final story takes us to Alberton, just west of Missoula. Soon, that small mountain town will mark its 100th year as a community. But as it prepares to celebrate its historic past, Alberton is looking towards its future with a certain degree of apprehension. Like many small towns in western Montana, Alberton is a community in transition. That might be why Joe Hansen is such a good fit as its mayor.
Hi, my name is Joe Hansen, Mayor of Alberton, Montana. The people here have trusted me to be the mayor for 4 years.
Trusting Joe is easy. Finding him is another matter. Sure, he's always on the move, but add to that the fact that he doesn't own a phone or a pager or admit to a residence. Not having a permanent address almost ruined his chances in the last mayoral race. But any Alberton resident knows that to reach the mayor, simply pick up the phone and call
Sidetrack Cafe.
Is the mayor there?
Joe, it's for you.
On line 1?
Every morning at the Sidetrack Cafe, Joe presides over a cup of coffee, greeting his constituents and meeting friends from Team Ready, a group of citizen advocates committed to a quick response when help is needed. From their well-equipped assembly area, Team Ready can fix anything, from a clogged drain to a dead battery. They've got the only tire changer in town. A few years ago, Team Ready made their way into the news and the hearts of animal lovers when they rescued an elk from a frozen pond. This morning's minor emergency is less dramatic. There's a leak at the historic Montana Valley bookstore. Running water and 100,000 paperback books is not a good mix.
It's like an extension of growing up, the safety of growing up and being able to go to someone and get help with something. You can go down there and tell them you have a problem and they put things down and come run down and help you out really quick.
That's where your leak is.
Back at the cafe, Joe is already working for the town. He's got a small office behind the storeroom. There, among the string beans and cling peaches, Joe dutifully attends to all matters municipal. This is Joe's second term as mayor. He first held office in 2001, but that lasted only 7 months. When his vision for Alberton conflicted with that of the town council, he resigned.
I didn't resign, I quit.
Joe is quick to add that he might have quit the town council, but never the town and its people. And when those people wanted him back, Joe again threw his hat into the ring. The race came down to one big issue: how to deal with development coming west from Missoula. Growth that would certainly change the feel of this easygoing community. Joe's campaign platform was simple: to keep Alberton as familiar and as comfortable as an old cotton t-shirt, one that feels good because it fits. He won by 40 votes.
Alberton is in transition stage, and that is an issue with people that come from other places. They move there are features in a town that they like, so they move here and then immediately set about changing it to conform to what they left behind.
Joe doesn't want that to happen. He agrees that Alberton needs to grow and develop, but first from within.
Our growth is in ourselves as individuals, within our school system, within our town, our retired people, allowing them to live out their years and enjoyment. That the growth is as an individual thing, not as a world global economy.
Over the years, Alberton has had more than its share of bad luck and a number of hot-button issues. Dogs tend to wander the streets. Seniors question an uncertain future. At council meetings, voices are raised as budgets are lowered. And no one wants to bring up the gazebo project, once so full of promise, before the plan stalled 2 winters ago. There's another thorny issue that's right in Joe's front yard, the town dump, which is Joe's front yard. He owns it. Some residents call it an eyesore. Others, including Joe, consider it a community resource, adding that the yard, like the town itself, is in transition, a continuously rotating supply of spare parts, cast-offs, and recyclable material. There's no charge for this trash-to-treasure service. Joe calls it free cycling. If you haul something off, try to leave an item behind, one that might help out your neighbor.
I went up there the other day and a friend of mine says, "Hey, Tan, what are you doing, shopping or dropping?"
Yeah.
In his junkyard, Joe moves around scrapped cars faster than agenda items at a council meeting. In a few months, vehicles that were abandoned along the road or on public land will be picked up, crushed, shredded, and recycled. There are thousands of stores at the dump, and Joe keeps track of most of them, like this World War II harbor mine which once guarded Puget Sound, or a one-owner 65 Chevy Impala 327. Before they were dumped here, these items had a useful past. Joe hopes that a need will arise and that some will make the transition to a useful future.
Look at this here. You got to gather all this up in 35 years, and I did it all myself.
1,000 yards directly above the dump, there's another part of Alberton that's in transition. Once this logged-out area was neglected by all but the rattlesnakes. This spring, Alberton's 6th grade class is working to restore the native plants while scratching out a nature trail. The class decided to name the new interpretive area in honor of their mayor, who helped make the project possible.
Come on, dog. We're going home.
A mayor determined to develop his community in such a way that all of its residents enjoy the same comfortable fit.
I don't think some people realize the extent to which he gives of himself to other people. He's just like an endless pool of resource and love and affection for other people in this town, and he's way, way valuable to our town.
For their patience, the Backroads crew rewarded Team Ready with a t-shirt and logo design. If you're ever in Alberton and you see a half a dozen men in orange shirts, they're probably on their way to find a spare part at the junkyard. We end our program not in a junkyard, but in a warehouse filled with the vintage computers and machines that the American Computer Museum can't fit into their present space. And with the pace of change in the computer industry, that problem is only going to get worse. We'd like to thank George and Barbara Karamedjeff for sharing the museum with us. The American Computer Museum in Bozeman is open 7 days a week, June, July, and August, with reduced hours other months. Of course, they have a website. Visit www.compustory.com. And remember that many stories on the Backroads series come from viewers like you. Send us a letter about your favorite place or person in Montana. The address is the Backroads of Montana, the University of Montana, Missoula, Montana, 59812. As long as you keep watching, we'll keep covering the Backroads of Montana. I'm William Marcus. See you next time.
Backroads of Montana was made possible by the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans. By Travel Montana at visitmt.com, and by the University of Montana.
Yes, I'm bound to roam. When I'm in off the road now, boys, Montana is my home. Coming in off the road now, boys, you know I'm heading home.